Hello, my name is Tim Birch, and this is the first video lecture for IMD221 or CIT 221. It's the exact same class, just cross-listed. So first of all, let me thank you for taking this course with me, and I hope that you learn a lot and hope that you have a lot of fun in the process of learning. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at Adobe Photoshop. That's the software program Photoshop made by the company called Adobe. And Photoshop is the industry standard software program used to create images and graphics for computer games. There are a few other programs out there, um, and you're more than welcome to use them, but in the professional environment, Photoshop is pretty much expected. So we'll go ahead and start with that right now. And this is the Adobe Photoshop 2017 interface. And it doesn't change a whole lot over the years. Maybe every 2 or 3 years you might see a big upgrade. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But anyhow, this is 2017, Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud 2017. And that's what that CC stands for, Creative Cloud. It is a subscription-based software, which means that you pay, I've heard it's either $40 a month or maybe even be $75 a month, but that gets you all of the Adobe Creative Cloud software programs, which includes Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and others. I'm not for sure which ones are also included in the Creative Cloud software suite, but for this class, all we're going to worry about is just Photoshop. So anyhow, this is Photoshop, and it is used to create pixel-based images. And you should know from our previous reading what a pixel-based image is. In other words, a raster image. If you don't find those terms familiar, please by all means take a refresher read on our assigned reading from the previous class day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just enough to get started here. This is a huge program. It's been around since the 90s, and it has a very interesting origin as well. I might get into that a little bit later. It has something to do with Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects geniuses behind films like Star Wars. So you might want to Google that at some point. Anyhow, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to first show you the main areas of the interface. Let's see here. How to get this paper out of the way here. We're going to have the menu bar up here, pretty much the same as you see on everything. Now, I am using a Macintosh, but it is almost identical on a Windows-based PC platform as well. So you should have no problem making the transition if you're working on a PC. Actually, for game design, I personally prefer working on a Windows PC, but it makes absolutely no difference. When it comes to graphic design, I'll use Photoshop. Let's try that again. When it comes to graphic design, I'll use a Mac. When it comes to web and video game design, I use a Windows PC, but that is strictly a matter of choice. You use whatever is best for you. Okay, so anyhow, this is the menu bar. And up here we have a control bar. And this control bar isn't going to make a whole lot of sense until I introduce you to the third element of the Adobe Photoshop interface, and that is the toolbar. Each one of these tools, this is where you're going to spend most of your time. This is where you're going to be spending a lot of button pressing right here when you click on one of these buttons. When you click on any of these buttons, it activates a certain tool. And each of these tools is designed to change the image in a specific way. Here we have some selection tools that allow us to select certain pixels. Here we have a cropping tool. Here we have some editing tools. We have a text tool. We have the pen tool. You're going to love that. So on and so forth. One of the first things I want to point out before I forget is that many of these tools have this little triangle in the lower right-hand corner of their icon. If you click on that little triangle, you'll get a pop-up menu that will give you different versions of that tool. So very important right there. Got all kinds of nifty tools. Adobe is a wonderful company. Um, they have really upped their game with Photoshop. It's just very advanced. There's a reason why it's the industry standard. But each time you change to one of these tools, you'll notice up here in the control bar that the options change. Each tool has its own options, and we're going to get into those later on in detail when we talk about each tool in detail. So that's the menu bar, the control bar, the toolbar. Over here we have these various windows. I call them palettes, just to hold over from the old days. I've been using this since the early to mid 90s. Um, so actually, let's see here. I'm not for sure what year it was, but my first version of Adobe was Adobe Photoshop 4, not Creative Cloud 4, not Creative Suite 4, but just plain old Adobe 4, and I still love it actually. Still actually does everything I need it to do to make good textures. So anyhow, so that is the basics of the Adobe interface. Oh, let me talk a little bit more about these windows over here. Um, First of all, you'll notice how that automatically changed to the marquee tool, even though my cursor was over here. I didn't click on it. Learn your keyboard shortcuts. Absolutely learn your keyboard shortcuts. That is was one of the marks of a professional. But let me get back over here to these palettes, these windows. I'm going to show you how to rearrange them here in just a second to your liking. You can move them around, get rid of the ones you don't ever use, add more that you will probably use that don't show up at first, so on and so forth like that. But we'll talk about that here in just a second.